Welcome to Psychic Girls Next Door. We are your hosts, Lily Hibarino
and Shannon Miller. This podcast is for all spirituality enthusiasts and psychics next door to share tools, experiences, and spiritual practices that align with your highest vibrational self.
And if you have listened to our past episodes, you have heard us mention our experiences receiving hypnotherapy and past life regression sessions with certified clinical hypnotherapist Laura Donahue. So we have her here today. We have probably, I think, 2 episodes just talking about you, Laura.
Well, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're so happy to be here interviewing you, and thank you for welcoming us to your house and creating the space for us to get to know you better and share with everyone that is listening about your experience and more about hypnotherapy. I had never had a hypnotherapy session before I met you, and I was very, very excited. I'll link the 2 episodes that both Shannon and I talk about it in the show notes if you want to refer back to our experiences, because we talked a lot about it. We went into details, but today is Laura's turn to talk more about it. So Laura specializes hypnotherapy, energy healing, Reiki, and medium reading. Is there anything that I'm forgetting?
No, that pretty much covers it. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, we're very honored to have you here on our show.
So, Laura, please tell us all about your background, where you grew up, your educational background, if you were religious or spiritual growing up, and if you want to throw in your astrological sign. Yeah, anything that we should know about your background.
Well, that's quite a bit. I'd be happy to tell you. Before I forget, I am a Pisces. I was born on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. So, shamrockhealing@gmail.com is my email address. So Shamrock is very important to me. I am a mom. I have 3 amazing kids, adult children, and I'm very blessed. They're amazing kids. So being a mom is very important to me. And I've raised them to be very intuitive children themselves. Let's see. I grew up in San Jose. But I raised my children in Antioch. I got married and we moved to Antioch, and that's where my children were raised. But I've been an intuitive person, since the age of 11. I'll get into that. I'm sure you'll ask me about my first experience with that. But just background wise, I'm divorced now. I got divorced about 11 years ago. I was married for 22 years. And let's see. You asked a lot all at once. That was. I work full time. I am a CPA. That's my day job. I'm a tax manager, and I help people save money through their taxes. I have a side practice as a tax practitioner as well. But my passion project is my hypnotherapy and my healing practice. That's what lights me up and gets me excited to help people. That's my purpose in life, is to help people heal.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And how did you first become interested in hypnotherapy? How did that come up in your life?
I went to a psychic named Kay Taylor, and she did a lot of readings for me, and I took some classes from her on increasing my intuitiveness. And all of a sudden, during one reading one day, she said, "I see you doing hypnotherapy." And bells went off in my head, and I knew it was the right thing for me. And I got so excited that I went home that same day and I researched hypnotherapy classes near me. And within days, I was signed up for classes at the Hypnotherapy Training Institute in Corte Madera. And it was a long drive, but I took the classes. They were weekend classes, and it was 200 hours of classes to get certified as a hypnotherapist. And I just loved it. And then 2 years later, I went back and became a certified clinical hypnotherapist with an extra 100 hours of class time. And yeah, I just absolutely loved it. But it was a psychic that told me, she saw me doing it, and those bells went off. So
Wow. That's amazing. It's just aligned, I think.
yeah.
Yes, you did mention that you did, as a child, you had some psychic or intuitive nudges.
Yeah.
How did that come up or show up to you?
I grew up with my mom and my grandma, Joanne, always going to psychics. So I was raised with them getting readings. And when I was 11 years old, my mom went to see a psychic named Mrs. Sherman. And Mrs. Sherman told my mother that of her 4 children, one of them would be very psychic one day. And my mother told me about this reading in particular, and I prayed that I would be that child that would be very psychic one day.
Well, the universe heard you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. But what I learned later in life is that we're all psychic. We're all psychic. And it's just a matter of how much you use your gifts and how much you practice with it. Because my brothers are psychic too, especially, I have 3 younger brothers, and of the 3, 2 of them are psychic. I'd say I use my gifts more than they do, but one of my brothers accepts it but doesn't practice it as often as the other 2, and then I use mine in my work. So we're all pretty psychic. Yeah.
That's very cool. So when you were 11, like, did you feel like you had this connection to like spirituality, or like you just knew that there was like more out there, or like how did you really like tap in, and how did it influence you to like, really kind of continue to be connected to psychics that led you down the path of becoming a healer yourself?
That's a good question, because it just always stayed with me, that desire to want to help people like Mrs. Sherman helped my mom and my grandma. I was an empath, and as a teenager, people would come to me and share their problems with me, and I would be that shoulder people cried on. I always liked helping people. I was that kind of person that's
very Pisces.
Very Pisces, yes. And I just started seeing psychics when I became old enough to afford it. Mm-hmm. And it just was very important to me. And then all of a sudden my gifts started flourishing and coming into the way they grow, the way they happen. I just started realizing I had guides and angels looking out for me, and things just started happening.
So just kind of going back a little bit, when you've mentioned that when you got like your professional training and to where you are today, how has the journey been? Like, because I know you have your own business now, and for any of our fellow, maybe people that want to be entrepreneurs or maybe open their own healing businesses. How did that go for you? And if you have any advice?
Oh, sure. Well, when I first got trained as a hypnotherapist, I started working out of my home and opening myself up to friends and family, practicing on them mostly. Mm-hmm. But then it just started to grow, and I opened an office near my home, and advertising on the internet and Facebook, and it was more word of mouth than anything else. My kids were in high school at the time, and I put myself out to the kids on their swim and water polo, high school swim teams and water polo teams. And I did pro bono work with the kids and coming into my home and with the coaches. And we got the kids to NCS, which was the championship games, and it just really helped them improve their game by doing visualizations and things like that with the hypnotherapy, and just word of mouth helped spread the success of the practice. So
I mean, I discovered you because my sister had a session with you, and I know she wouldn't care if I'm like putting her on blast, but she said that it like literally was life changing, and something that she like brought up in her session that I know she would feel comfortable with me sharing is that she looked at in one of your sessions, she looked at her past lives related to, whatever issue she was reflecting on. And her name was Margaret in a past life. And she, like, what's really weird is I would call her Margaret May. Her name is Megan, and I would call her Margaret May as a child. And I, like, when she told me that, I was like, wait, that is so weird. Because, like, her name is not close to Margaret at all. Like, why would I call her Margaret? And I thought that was very, like, affirming. And I think that story was just kind of before my own spiritual like deep dive and journey. And I think it's so funny how things come full circle. Yeah. And then we both had sessions with you, and I think it's such a beautiful thing. And like, clearly the universe is like bringing people together for a reason. Yeah. But yeah, I just like had to tell you that because I'm just like, what a weird, like, it's like clearly that's like very cosmically true, right? Like, even if you see it as like a metaphorical situation, just like the connection of like, why would I call her that name? That was her past life name. Like, that's so strange. But that's like what excites me about spirituality and all the nuances and synchronicities involved. But I would love to understand, like, when you were discovering your spiritual gifts or your mediumship or intuitive abilities, how did they show up to you? And, like how old were you throughout those experiences, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. No, not at all. Just before I get into that, I'll mention that when I do a hypnotherapy session, I usually don't remember what we talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So, because I'm channeling a lot of intuitiveness.
It's the same with us too, as psychics. When I do also clairvoyant readings, I don't remember a lot of stuff. It just comes through, right?
Right. Yeah. So I don't remember that about Megan's reading about Margaret.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
You were probably in that past life with her, and that's why you remember the name Margaret.
Yeah.
May. That's why you call her that. But anyways, so when I was 29, no, that was a different time. When I was 20, when did I meet Tom? When I was 24, I met my husband, who ended up being my husband. I met him at a party by a coworker, and we were just chatting and talking, and he worked with me, and he was a mutual friend. And all of a sudden he started telling me about an ex-girlfriend. And you wouldn't think that would interest me, but I saw him in a different light. And bells went off again. 2 times in my life, bells have gone off. Once with Tom and once with hypnotherapy. And when those bells went off, I saw him in a different light, and I became interested in him. And we eventually ended up getting married. But that was my intuition telling me, this is important. Pay attention. Pay attention. And I was 24. I think I was 24. When I was 29, I had what Deborah King would call an initiation. Have you ever heard of Deborah King? She's a author, and she talks about healing. She has online healing, in-person healing. But I've read a lot of her books, and she talks about an initiation that we go through, different levels of initiations. And it happened when my grandfather passed away. And I was very close to my grandfather in life. We grew up visiting my grandma and grandpa on weekends all the time, going swimming at their house. And I'd usually talk to my grandma, not my grandpa, but I always saw my grandpa. And he passed away, and I went to his hospital room, and he was laying on the bed in the hospital room. And I walked into the room, and instead of being sad, I looked at him and I said to myself, Grandpa, now you have all the answers. And it was just such a peaceful aha moment, some kind of awareness that I had, that I was in awe of him. And ever since then, I've been able to communicate with him since he's crossed over. And he talks to me. I hear his voice. He sends me songs on the radio, words, smells. That was the beginning of my mediumship abilities, was Grandpa passing away. But that initiation, that moment in the hospital room was just so... words escape me. I don't know how to explain it. But that was when I was 29. And then I'll mention one other experience that happened. The second time I went back to hypnotherapy training, I was sitting in the classroom and the instructor was doing a hypnotherapy demonstration with one of the other participants. And he said, "I'd like you all to send your support to her while I do this demonstration." And I didn't know what that meant. So I'm sitting there with my hands in my lap, and all of a sudden they start tingling and energy starts shooting out of my hands towards this woman. And I'm freaking out, sitting there going, "Oh my God, what is happening?" And I'm thinking, do I stop? Do I let it go? What do I do? And so after the demonstration was over, I raised my hand and I said, "Something happened during the demonstration and I don't know what it was," because this had never happened to me before. And so everybody kind of giggled and laughed and said, "Laura, it's okay. This was wonderful. You helped." And she said, "I felt it." And she says, "I felt your support. I felt your healing." And they told me that I sent healing energy to her. And that was the beginning of me sending healing energy. And I've been doing it ever since. I can do it distance healing. I can do it in person. I make weird movements with my hands when I do healing. My hands have a mind of their own. Usually one is the receiver and one is the sending hand. And I love doing it. What I feel is happening is that my guides, I call them my healing helpers, that they're using me as a channel and that they send the energy through me to the client, and that triggers the energy within the client to heal themselves.
That's really beautiful. And as someone who's experienced one of your sessions, I totally felt that as we were going through. And so I'm, my part of my abilities are to pick up on if there's a bunch of different guides in the room. And I could tell, you have a whole council of people as backup. And, but yeah. So while, could you talk about what typically happens in one of your hypnotherapy sessions, or, the different types of services that you, in healing services and healing sessions that you offer to your clients?
Sure. Well, when somebody comes for just a regular hypnotherapy session, they come to my house. Right now I work out of my house, and they sign a release form, which is basically standard policy. And then we sit down and we just talk, and we talk about what brought them there, what brought them here, and what they want to work on. And I get a little background information about, their life and some experiences that may have influenced the situation that they want to work on. And once I feel like I've got enough background information, we get set up for the hypnotherapy session itself, for the time when I guide them into hypnotherapy, and I explain to them what to expect. You're aware the whole time. Your eyes are closed. You're going to be relaxed. I'm going to guide you into relaxation, but you're going to remember it. Excuse me. You're going to remember everything. You're aware. You're in control. You won't accept any suggestions that are contrary to any belief systems that you have. And your mind may go off in a different direction, but it'll come back. And if you do kind of click out, as I call it, your subconscious mind is paying attention, and your conscious mind may not be, but your subconscious mind is who I'm talking to. And that is where the work is being done at the subconscious level, because that's usually where the blockages are. Mm-hmm. And that's where we want to heal. And then I count them up from 1 to 5. And on the count of 5, they open their eyes feeling awake, alert, refreshed, and energized. That's what I usually say. And then we talk a little bit about it afterwards. And it takes a few days to process what we work on. But, and I tell them that if they need me, I'm available, to work on anything that comes up. But, don't go doing something, that takes a lot of effort right afterwards, because you do process things afterwards.
Yeah, we both attest to the experience. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. There was a friend of mine, when I was sharing my experience, my hypnotherapy session that I had with you, and she asked me, but, when you go into a past life regression, what if you stay in that past life? And I mean, from my own limited knowledge, I said, well, I don't think that's possible, but I wanted to ask you, because you have more experience. And is that even possible, just for someone to go back into a past life and get, I'm going to put a quote unquote stuck, because it is a valid question that she's had for someone that I guess doesn't, really have a lot of knowledge, or maybe a little skeptical about this work.
Well, that's a very good question. I've never had it, but I appreciate it. And there's no way you would get stuck. And I can guarantee you that, because your mind is visiting this place. And if you were to wake up, you would wake up right in the present moment. But I would guide you always back through a process of coming back into your present time and into the present moment and into your current body. And we always come back to that. But if you were to wake up in that past life part of the session, you would be in your present body and in the present moment, and it wouldn't happen. So God forbid there was an emergency and all of a sudden you woke up, you would be okay.
Great.
That would happen at any time in any kind of hypnotherapy session.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that. Because I know there's maybe a little stigma too, from maybe back in the days when they had on TV, people going through hypnotherapy, which is very different from what you do. And people still, I guess, have this sort of stereotype.
Yeah. Well,
that type of practice.
What I do is all about healing. We're not going to quack like a duck or do anything silly like that. I always tell people, I promise I won't do anything silly. It's not for entertainment. What I do is all about healing. And if you were to do a past life regression like you ladies did, it's to heal something going on in your current life today. It's not just for entertainment. We don't do past life regressions just for entertainment to see, who was I in a past life? It's to heal something going on in your current life that's coming through into this life today.
That makes a lot of sense. And that resonates with me, because I came to you specifically to heal on hey, this keeps happening as pattern, or I keep attracting these types of people in my life, or whatever it was. I've cleaned it out so well. I healed on it, which is great. But what types of issues or challenges do people typically come to you with that you can help facilitate the healing process for them, or give them more, guide them through to get the healing or information that they feel like they need to?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of different things that I work on with hypnotherapy, but a common theme is smoking, weight loss, grief, depression, anxiety, spirituality, pain management. I'll mention something I did for my father when he was still with us. He was suffering from bone cancer and he was in a lot of pain. And I went to see him in Colorado, and I said, Dad, let me help relieve some of your discomfort. I use the word discomfort, not pain. Mm-hmm. And he says, okay, I guess so. And he was a little skeptical, but he wanted to please me and let me help him. And so I did. And by the end of the session, his discomfort had eased tremendously. And he says, "Oh my gosh, Laura, you've turned a skeptic into a believer." And then he shared with me that he was afraid of dying because he didn't believe that there was an afterlife. He didn't believe in reincarnation like I do. So I said, "Dad, let me do this. Let me connect with your brother, and I'll tell you what he tells me." So that night I did. I connected with my Uncle Donnie. I have a brother named Donnie too, so this is who my brother was named after, Donnie Kevin. And my Uncle Donnie had died at the age of 18 in a drunk driving car crash, and he had a 6-week-old daughter at the time. So when I connected with Donnie Kevin, he gave me some information that night that I would have no way of knowing. So the next morning I called my cousin Teresa, his daughter, and I verified it with her, with my dad present. And I told my dad, "Dad, this is what Donnie told me. Teresa confirmed it. This is what's going on." And he said, "Oh my God, you would have had no way of knowing that. And Teresa verified it. You did talk to my brother. Mm-hmm. And this is real. And he still exists. He's still around. He still sees what's going on. He knows that his daughter is going to become a grandma for the first time. And he would have had no way of knowing that. You have no way of knowing that." So it gave him some peace knowing that he was going to be dying soon. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a very healing experience on both ends. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So, Laura, besides your website, where else can people find you? Are you on social media?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page. I can't think of what it is off the top of my head, but I don't rely on it very heavily. But just my email and my website are the best places to reach me.
Awesome. Yeah. And we'll definitely hyperlink. But I do want to ask, you've talked kind of like I can tell you get a lot of healing yourself from the type of work you do. But from the type of work you do, what do you find most rewarding for yourself during the process and for your clients while they're experiencing the healing?
It's such a joy to know that somebody has a cathartic experience with me, with my guides, with their guides. It's amazing. And I always, when somebody cries and then they apologize, I say, if I don't make you cry, I'm not doing my job. Because most people cry on my couch. It's just that's part of the process, is feeling that release and knowing that they've found a way to experience healing, whether it's physical pain that's released, or spiritual guidance, or emotional release. It just brings me such joy to know that I can help with that.
Yeah, we love that. It brings us so much joy to be here too with you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, well, this was so wonderful. What a wonderful conversation, and just listening to all your experience and your wisdom. It also brings healing to us as well. It's been a great experience. But thank you so much, Laura, for just sharing your energy, your time, making space for us here. And thank you so much for everyone that has joined us on this episode. We're going to link Laura's contact information in the show notes. Shannon and I, we guarantee you guys are going to have a great experience, whether it be any of her healing sessions. But don't forget to leave us a comment, or if you have a question, just let us know. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thanks, Laura, for being here. Do you have any final, tips or advice for anyone who's listening who is hesitant about hypnotherapy or interested or curious?
Well, thank you. It's been a joy to be here. I just would say that most people come to hypnotherapy as a last resort. And rather than wait as a last resort, realize that it's become so popular and so mainstream now that there's athletes and actresses and actors and people out there, you know, your next door neighbor doing it to help heal. And whether it's energy healing or mediumship or hypnotherapy, there's so many different modalities of healing out there now that don't ignore your doctor, of course. I'm not trying to say don't do, your normal medical care, but there are things that can help heal in addition to normal, typical Western medicine. That there's acupressure and acupuncture and aromatherapy. And, I have singing bowls that help with sound healing, and I do chakra clearings, and it's just, there's so much out there that to be aware of the opportunities, and your own body can do so much, and it just needs a little nudge every once in a while. So just be open to the possibilities.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that advice. It's amazing. I'm going to take a lot of that back home.
You might have to come back.
Yeah.
For sessions.
Yeah. Like Lily said, we'll make sure that y'all have access to Laura's information and also your resources that you shared with us today on the podcast. We'll hyperlink everything that we can find. But thanks again for listening to this episode with our very special guest, Laura Donahue, a clinical certified hypnotherapist. And we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much from the Psychic Girls Next Door.